Welcome back everyone to this introduction course to the Unreal Engine. In this video we're going to look at the basics of animation. How does animation work within Unreal Engine? And we're going to have a look at the sequencer. So there are many different ways of animating things in Unreal Engine. We can animate things through blueprints. We can animate objects and characters with conditions attached to them, like when you are playing a video game and you move left or right, or you jump, or the buttons that you press. There are different animations attached to that. Now that type of stuff, the interactive animation, that we're not going to see. What we're going to cover in this video is how to create animations within Sequencer, which is what Unreal Engine uses for cinematic sequences, basically, right? So let's dive into that. So it's just so that you know, this is more a tutorial for people that are looking into creating cinematic sequences, either for previs or for full-blown animation, which can also be done within the Unreal Engine. Right, so let's get started. The very first thing you'll need is a sequence, a level sequence, and that you can get right here at the Cinematics tab. You click on it, and then you have the option of adding a master sequence or a level sequence. We are going to start with the level sequence. The master sequence is interesting once you finally have a set of level sequences that you can then put all together on a bigger timeline where all your master sequences are. It's useful when you've got a lot of them. We'll cover that maybe at a later stage in this course. But first, let's start with the level sequencer. So you click on that, and it's going to ask you, where would you like to save your sequence? So I already have a folder for that called sequences. You can make one. If you don't have one, if you just click on content, right mouse button, and just make a new folder. Right, so I'm going to put mine in sequences. I'm going to give it a new name. I'm going to call it my first sequence. Let's remove this part right here. Yep, my first sequence, and then press save. And what we're going to see is we're going to see this timeline, right? A new window called Sequencer. If you have a second monitor, you can drag the sequencer also out to the second monitor so that you have more space, and you can also see the timeline in a bigger, on a bigger surface, basically, which can sometimes be very useful. Right, now what we're going to do, we're going to really cover the basics, okay? We're going to look at how to, for example, animate a simple character like this. Or we might, towards the end of the video, also look at how to import your own animations, right? Because some of you guys might maybe have some experience in animation or come from previous industry, and you will have your own animations, obviously. So how do you import your own animations that you make in Maya or Blender? We'll cover that too. I've got a animation ready that I did myself with one of the characters that I modeled myself as well within Blender that I use for previs within Blender. Right, so first, let's do this. And maybe towards the end, we'll see. It depends how long the video gets. We will also maybe look at importing Mixamo animations and all that stuff. So bear with me. There are a few fun things that we can do. Let's just see how long the video gets. Right, so I'm first going to put this guy at, let's say, minus 1,200, more or less, give or take. Right, and then I'm going to start an animation, right? I'm going to ask, or tell, not ask, I'm going to tell Unreal Engine to animate this young man. How do I do that? Well, I first need to tell Unreal Engine what to track, right? Because here, if there's nothing here, this is a timeline. If I move it, nothing happens. The reason why nothing happens is because there's nothing to track. If I want to track something or see the animation, then I need to either on this green button, you can say, for example, actor to sequencer, and because the mannequin is highlighted, it will pop up all the way at the top, right? You can add anything you want here from your outliner, right? But I just need the mannequin, so I'm going to click on that, and then you see that all of a sudden we have data on the timeline. Now we have an animation track, and we have a transform track. We can make this bigger, and then you have your location, you make that bigger, you've got your X, Y, Z, and the same for your rotation, your roll, your pitch, your yaw. and your scale X, Y, Z as well, right? But because we're going to do something very simple, we're just going to leave it at transformation or transform right here. Now, every character has a set of animations, right? Every rig has a set of animations that is attached to it. At least in Unreal. You can import them from the marketplace, or you can, some of them just already come here, or you can create some animations yourself through either motion capturing or whatever, and then you can import it as an FBX file into here. But you have to make sure that the animation is made for the rig that you're going to work with. So for example, this mannequin uses a very specific rig. If I were to go to this character and go to the mesh, right, this is the skeleton that is used on this mannequin, right? You can click on it, and then you can always see this is your skeleton. So anyone that works in animation will know that every character or every object that needs a rig, basically. Otherwise, you can't animate anything. Let me put this down to number 3. I was going a little bit too fast. There we go. And as you will see, so for example, if I go here, whenever I select it, you will see that we're going, let's press F. You can really see where this is, right? And then Option or the Alt key and the left mouse button, and you can see that every tiny little part of this can be worked with. You can animate it, you can move it, you can do all kinds of stuff. But we're not going to do full-blown animation here. I just wanted to show you where this rig is. Yeah. Now this rig has a set of animations. So on the mannequin, if we click on the animations, these are some of the animations that are already preset for this character. So, and we're going to use some of them so that you guys can work along. So I didn't want to use my own animations because then you cannot try this out at, behind your desk. So we are going to just use the basic one. So we're going to go to animation, and we're going to click on animation, and the same animations that we saw in that animations folder are going to be back here. So we're going to start maybe with an idle animation. That's just where you just stand still, right? And now if I move, my timeline sees the guy moves. Okay, so it's very subtle, but he does move. Let's zoom in a little bit. Let's go a little bit like this. There you go. If I press along, see, it does move a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to have an idle animation followed by a walking animation, right? So we press the plus button again, and this time we're going to tell the sequencer that we want a walk cycle, right? A walk cycle is about 29 frames. Okay, when I look at it, see this orange number here? That will tell you basically how many frames are in your animation, or actually it's 30 because you have to count 0 as well. So you've got your 30 frames, right? And if you want to move this character around, you can see, also let me zoom out a bit. The walk cycle is within place. So in order to make him move for real, you're kind of going to have to put some keyframes in your transform, right? Which is what we're going to do. You can also, before we continue, you see these two animation tracks? You can also move it and put them on one and the same track, right? Sometimes that's interesting, sometimes it's not. We'll look at which reasons to apply, when to apply it and when not to apply it. Right, so in this case, from here to here, it's fine. It's, if you go, the transition between this and this is not too bad. If it goes too aggressive, then yeah, actually, wait, let me press. Yeah, okay, it's a little bit too much. We'll look into this in a second. Then we might create a blend shape, which is what you can create here with weights. And in that case, it makes sense to put this one down, right? So you have an animation that's going to cross over on the other one. Like for example here, then you create a in-between this moment from here to here will basically say that you are going from your idle animation to your walk animation. If you want to do that, you're going to have to open up both animations and to expose the weight of both. What does this mean? So if you're on this one, the weight of this animation right now is 1. And that means that it gives preference to this animation, right? The weight of this, you can put it to 0 and say, do not give any weight. or attention to this animation, right? So let's keyframe that. So a keyframe is when you press on this little ball with a plus sign, you get to keyframe, or you get to tell Unreal Engine, at this moment in time, I want you to do this, right? And the same with location. We're going to look at that again. Let's move ahead a little bit to where the animation ends, and we're going to add wait again and wait again on both sides, right? But this time, the one at the top, we're going to change that to 0 and tell the sequencer that that is not an interesting animation anymore. So we want to create a switch between that to that, all right? So it's a little bit more natural looking, see, like this, right? So let's press spacebar, and there we go. It's a bit better. The only difference is that now, obviously, we want this guy to start moving, right? So what we're going to do, we know for sure that he's still up to here. From here, there's going to be somewhat animation, right? Now, we can try and pull it off just like this, see if anything, how bad it looks. So here, first of all, on the transform, because we're going to move this character on the y-axis, right? And if we quickly wanted to transform, that's the W key, the shortcut key is this one, W, to transform, to move your character around. So we're going to tell sequencer, let's add a keyframe right here. And at this moment in time, at frame 71, we can see this is the information that sequencer is going to look for. Okay, so your transform information is this one right here. So then we're going to move from here to here, and I'm going to say that I'm going to add about 250 in units, right? So you can either move it like this and say, okay, I want him to move from here to here. And I have a feeling that I might have to move him, yeah, somewhere here, more or less, right? And then I'm going to add another keyframe. So I'm going to keyframe that again. Right, now you will see this green line, and this means, see, that now he's actually walking. Now, there are a few other things that you will notice when doing a walking animation. Walking animations, or that actually has to do with these little things, right, these keyframes, when you right-click them, you will see that they have interpolation, right? And you have different types of interpolation. That has, I mean, I'm not going to go super deep into what interpolation is and how it works, but you basically have, when you animate things, you have a animation graph, and with the one that we have now, the auto one, right, it has a slow start, so your animation, your movement, your transform from on the y-axis has a slow start, and it goes faster and faster until it reaches a constant in speed, and then towards the end it has a slowdown, right? Now that is the auto. We don't want that. We want a linear one for this, right? So a walk cycle is linear at best, okay? So that you just select it, and then you either right mouse button and then you put them at linear, or there's a shortcut key for that as well. I will Control Z that really quickly. If you just press number 4 on your keyboard, it will immediately go to a linear. So 4 is like this one. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5 if you want a constant. Constant means that at one point it's, I mean, on this keyframe is standing here, and at the other keyframe is standing there. There is no line between this and that, right? Okay, so let's quickly test the animation. We press play. Let's see how this works. Okay, yeah, it looks somewhat okay. So here, there's a little bit of a, he's doing a little bit of a flying moment thing here, which we don't really want. He starts basically here, so we could technically move this a little bit out. So if we wanted to move it, we could just move it a tiny little bit, give him a little bit of time to, yeah, something like that, maybe a little bit here. Right, so you can move keyframes just to see from what moment on you want him to really start moving. Technically, I wanted it a little bit further, like say here maybe. There we go. Yeah, that looks a little bit more realistic. Something like that. It's not perfect, but hey, we're trying our best. Right. So now the next question is, okay, that's great. He moved. Okay, so we got him from here to there, but what about the walk cycle. He's only doing one. So the good thing about animations is that you can put them on repeat, right? So if I just drag it out, you'll see another line appearing. And so now you have this same animation twice, but this time, because our transform right here doesn't continue any further, it just stays in the same place. So we'll have to move that one again. But it's just to show you that you can keep on repeating animations over and over again. Now, then you get to this, right? This is the end of your animation. You can change this. Okay, so now it stops at frame 150. We don't want that. We want to go further. So what we can do is we can, for example, say, let's go to 500 or something, right? And then we make our timeline visible. So that's here at the bottom. You can just put in a number, and you can drag this out, that red line, to say, okay, I, for example, want to animate up to 480 or whatever you need, right? So here we're going to maybe do a walk cycle of 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 times before we start turning it into a run. Let's see, right there, right? And here what we can do, basically this one, we can drag it out. So if we know that up to here is, let's see, 250. So if one of these is 250, and we're going to do it 4 more times, so that's 1,000 units. So that means that by the time we get to the end of it, if it's at minus 950, we add 1,000 to it, we'll get to 50. So the end location right here, when I get here, the y axis, or the, my transform on the y should be at 1,000, right? So I'm gonna, at 50, sorry. I'll add it to 50. I'll press enter, and I will add a keyframe, right? So somewhere there right now, right? You don't have to do it like this. You can just move it around with the thingy, but I'm just showing you that that's one of the ways to do it. I'm going to press 4 again on my keyframe because I want it to be linear, right? And let's see again from here to there. So let's go back. Let's go here, here, and let's press. Oops, sorry. Let's press play. Play is just spacebar, right? So when we're in sequencer, you can just press spacebar. You don't even have to have this selected. Just press spacebar and he will start moving. You can look around while he moves and looks okay. It looks okay. Looks natural. Looks more or less not too bad. So again, so like when he moves, I'd say about 250 more or less. You have to look at the walk cycle and see how believable it is. It might be a little bit less and a little bit more, but let's see. Looks okay. When I slow it down, it looks not too bad. It's believable, right? And then press play. Press your space bar right here. There we go. Yeah, that's okay. All right, so with that done, what we got now, let's press space bar again here, up, slow it down. Right, then we're gonna do he's gonna make a run. Right, let's make a run for it. So to change this into a run, it's identically the same way of working. Right, so we go to this spot, and now we're going to tell the engine or sequencer to add another animation. So we go back up here where we have so we've got a mannequin, and we're going to add another animation. Right, and this time we're going to say, okay, we've got our walk, we've got our idle, we got our run, our walk. Now we need our run, right? So we're going to add a run. Now run is much faster, right? It needs about 17 frames if I look at it well. If you want to zoom in, by the way, you can just bring these closer together and you can zoom in on what you're working, right? And you can have some precision, right? Now, of course, we don't want to go just from here to here. Actually, I'll show you what happens when you just leave it as is, right? So we're going to do a running animation. We don't need much. We need maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. I think because running goes faster, and we have a wall right in front of us. So let's say he starts here, and the running part I'm going to have to test. Let's say up to here. Let's do this part just like this. All right, so now we're going to move we're gonna move on this axis and say, for example, okay, maybe it's up to here. I don't know. I'm just eyeballing it or guessing. I press another, I create another keyframe by pressing this button right here, and I select my keyframe, box select, change it to linear again, right, by pressing number 4. And yeah, let's see. Yeah, no, he needs much more. Yeah, this looks like the Scooby-Doo animations. They're running where he's on the spot. So when you see this, okay, and you need to have a bit of a, yeah, not everyone has the same eyesight on this, but you have to have a bit of a feeling. I mean, it looks off. When you look at the animation, it kind of looks off, right? It looks like he has to create much more distance for the run that he's doing. So what do you do then? What you can do is either you bring this one, let me see, if we want him to be there, you bring this one much closer. Let's say, I don't know, I'm just guessing. Let's try and see what happens if I put it here. Right, so let's press again. That's a bit more realistic. Okay, so let's go here. He's walking. Oops, I keep moving between. I keep toggling. You have to go here. He keeps walking and then he runs. Okay, so as you've noticed, the transition from walking to running, so he walks, and then all of a sudden starts running. Right? That transition is a bit awkward. So we'll need to fix that. That's the reason why you can't just leave it like that. And here, yeah, more or less. I still think he can do, that run still looks like he will have more distance. Let's try it like this. It's a lot of trial and error, All right, and then, no, that's too fast. Okay, that one was okay-ish, right? So he's walking, and then he starts running, more or less. Okay, right, let's say that we only have space for 3 of these, okay, because there's a wall. Maybe we can finish off with a jump or something. But again, like I said, we are gonna have to make a transition, right? We're gonna have to transition both of these animations, right, from one to the other. So the way we can do that is either tell Unreal that we want a little bit of this, or let's bring a little bit of the walk in here. Let's say about 10 frames or something, right? You can see plus 10. And let's work with trying to create keyframes in there. So I'll see, this one is on the, yeah, that's it, right? So we have it right here, and we'll say, okay, again, we'll start with the weights. So we add a weight here, and we add a weight here, right? So 2 keyframes. And for this one, the one at the top, we were going into a 3rd-person run, so let's do that at 0, because we're still walking now. This one we'll just leave it at 1, right? And then when we go here, we will create another one, and we're right here. We'll add another keyframe at the weight at the bottom, another keyframe at the weight at the top. Now this time, we want the bottom keyframe, which we have we have selected now. We put this one to 0, right? We say, don't do that animation. We go to the top one, and we say, okay, the running animation, make that one happen, right? And let's see how that looks. That transition here is starting to transition. Looks okay. Looks okay. At least in slow motion. When I move it slowly, it looks not too bad. All right, let's do that again. He's walking and then okay, yeah, it picks up a little bit of speed. It goes a little bit too fast for my liking, but let's move this one a bit. Oops, got that. Yeah, there we go. So let's go again. Yeah, it's a bit speedy, that transition. So I press. Yeah, that's a bit too fast. It's because of the way you were to go about it. What you can do, in this case, you can try to put this to 1 and see, because the graph then goes, it makes this subtle transition instead of a harsh one. So let's press play. That's a bit better. That's a bit better. Right, your graph is right here. You can see all your curves here if you were to animate, so that's something for later. We're not going to look into that, but just in case you're wondering where your animation keys are and all that stuff, your curves, it's right here. You can, when you press on it, you get your curves right here, and That's what I was talking about. So animation curves is very useful. But again, if I'm not going to give a tutorial on that because that will eat up quite a lot of time in this tutorial. Right. So with that said, we can look at that run. So we've got, so far, what do we got as an animation, right? Let's bring this back to where we were. Let's, yeah, we got that. We got a simple. He's at idle. Let me go closer. We might actually add a camera in a second. I don't know. Normally in this video I was not going to introduce cameras here, but we'll see. We'll see. Just to follow this character along. So he's idle. He's idle. Starts walking. I'm going to try to following him with the arrow keys, and then he starts running. Right. And then here maybe we can finish off with a jump. Right. So what I'm trying to show you guys is just how to follow up on animations. So right here, where's this guy? He's coming here, running, up to here, right? And then the last thing that we're going to do, right, let's zoom in again a little bit on this, up, so we can have a very clear view and look where we are. But another thing, by the way, I forgot to tell you this, but if you really want to jump to the next keyframe, you see these arrows? You can just jump through it. So you click on this, it will always go to the next keyframe. So in this case with the transform, you can just go to this keyframe and then you know, oh, that's where it is. It's not lined up with the animation here, so we can just move it one back. Now it is. Right. Then, with that said, we were going to transition into a jump. Right, let's jump. We're going to add another animation, as we did before, and that's the jump, right? And so the jump, basically what it does is this, wait, let's extend this a bit, third person jump, so he's walking, and then, no, this is a jump landing, I think. Let's do that. Let's remove this animation, go back, and add the jump animation here. Let's do that again. Yeah, jump end. You've got a jump and that's the jump. I think this is the one we needed to do. Looks a bit awkward, but let me have a quick look here. That looks like the jump end. Am I? Third person jump and jump start, of course. There you go. That makes a lot of sense. Right, so that's where he jumps, and then there you go. Yeah, there you go. Right, so we might want to do a transition from here. This time we're just going to make him jump. We won't see him after this. We'll just pretend that he can go through walls. Right? So he's running, and then he jumps. Obviously, as you've noticed, we're going to have to work with the translation right here, right? The transform. We're going to have to transform and say, for example, that our character right here is gonna fly through the wall. Somewhere here, somewhere. Right? I'm not sure where. We'll just make a guess. Right? I'm gonna highlight this again, put this to number 4, linear. There's a chance that we might change it here. Right, so what we got right here now is running. And here, you see how I want this transition to be a bit more smooth? So I'm going to bring this down, right? So I can create a bit of a transition of, again, about 10 frames, more or less, give or take. Yeah, more or less. Maybe a bit less. Wait, let's do 5, because there's quite a bit of this in there, right? So we have this. Okay. So we're going to look at the weights again. Right here, zoom in on the guy a bit, and we are going to, again, add a keyframe right there, add a keyframe right there for the weights, move over here. Oh yeah, before I do that, I want the jump animation to be at 0, I want my run animation to be at 1, then over here, I will put my running animation at 0, and it's already keyframed, and I'll put my weight Over here. Come on, you can do it. At 1. Okay, let's see. Hopefully it's not going to give me an issue now. There you go. Something strange happened there. All right, let's see. For some reason it disappeared. I have no idea what happened there. But okay, let's just assume that this is the animation, right? And so when I press play here, jumps, and yeah, again, for some reason here, is it the visibility that it's turned off or something on this one? Shouldn't be any reason for that to happen, but okay, don't know. Either way, there shouldn't be any reason as to why this is turned off during this particular frame. All right. Maybe there's a thing that I'm overlooking that I don't know about. Maybe there's a feature that if you press a certain button, you can just make it transparent or something. Maybe that. Could be. Who knows? There we go. And so that's what we got, right? So we've got a walk animation. So let's go back to the beginning and to here, right? It's not a perfect animation, but let's take this camera. This one will do. No, wait, this is the one from the player, I think. Yeah. Let's add in a quick camera. I'll just go to cinematic. We'll look into this again soon. Okay, so in the next video, I'll explain cameras a bit better. But I'm quickly just going to add a cinematic camera. Lift this up a bit. Bring it over. Come on, help me out here. Over here. Something like that. Bring them down a bit. Bring them back so that we can have a good look at this animation. Up. Somewhere here. Bring it down a little bit. All right. And yeah, we can start about here. Right. We're quickly going to bring the camera in. Again, this is not so. This is the other way to bring some stuff in, by the way. So you go to your outliner. You say you want to track your camera. You tell your camera, for example, to stay there. See, and then all of a sudden you start getting camera cuts. Again, we'll discuss this in the next video, but it's just so that you know that this is where you put your camera. So as you can see, you've got your camera actor, and you can track a few things, your aperture, focal length, and all that stuff. We're going to keep it very basic right now. I'm just going to focus on the transform. So if I see open and close this, so I don't need to see anything on the mannequin, so I'm just going to close it down. You can open it or close it down. I'm just going to focus on the camera now. And I'm just going to focus on the transform. That's it, right? I'm just going to say, okay, at this point, I want you right here, right? And that's going to stay like that the whole time until the animation here starts. So here at some point, it's going to start walking. Say about here. Put another keyframe in just to let the sequencer know that we don't need to move. Then here we do need to move. We do need to move. Let's go all the way to the end. And you'll see that we will have to, let's see, this was on the Y. On the Y, we've got the camera selected. Yes. So all we have to do is just drag here, and it will move here as well, right? So in the details menu, that's what I'm doing right now. Right, let's say we just, let's say we went through. Or maybe up to here. Let's go up to here and add another keyframe, right? We add a keyframe. Now, if we were to follow along, see, we can see that we can't follow our character because it's all good up until, even here, actually, when does he start running? Also, let's not forget, because these keyframes are they're not linear, so I'm going to do them linear now, so I got a bit of a better idea. Camera starts moving about here. Starts moving here. I want the camera not to go that fast, so I basically, when was it that he starts running? Let me quickly check that. Walk, walk, oops. Walk, 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 walk. If I want to see the camera again, I can just click on this little icon here, and I will see, or I should normally see the camera. No, sorry, this one. Oops, still not. Where is the camera? Okay, let's just do it through here then. Sorry, perspective, and then camera viewport. Let's go in. I have no idea why the camera is doing this, because there is no reason for the camera to turn here. What happened? Okay, I'm in perspective. Where is my camera? Right here. This one, right? So, cine camera actor 1. There we go. Now it's cooperating. Thank God for that. Okay, and now we look. Let me do this, and I can cine camera actor 1. Where are you? Oh, okay, yeah, of course, because this is literally what the camera sees. Perfect, okay. I was a bit confused, sorry. Okay, so when he starts running, this is when he's walking. Clearly, the camera is way too far at this point, so we need to go back, keep him in frame, right? And here, we're gonna transform. Let me see if I can get the menu, the Mac menu out of here. No, for some reason it doesn't want to do this now. That's great. All right, we'll just work with this. We'll just leave the Mac menu right here. I can't remove it for now. I'd have to pause the video, which I'm not going to do. Right, so let's add another keyframe here. Make it a linear one and say, okay, I want the camera to be here. So again, so we're following him. So far, so good. Here he starts speeding up. Actually, I should have had this thing. Let's move him a bit. Now, instead of here, sorry, I meant going the other way. Here is fine, right? Let's say here is fine, but here, I want him to be a little bit more centered. So let's say somewhere here, let's just add another keyframe right here, and tell this one to, again, be a little bit more centered right there, for example. Yeah, so press the keyframe again. Let's see what that does. So we're walking, we're following, that's fine, so far so good. And then here he's going to start running. Here, this is where I want it speeds up a bit. There we go. Here we could maybe make sure that, especially here, by the time we reach here, we need to make sure that this one is still somewhat centered. Add another keyframe. We don't have to do linear on this, otherwise it will go a little bit too thingy. So we press play. Let's quickly see what that gives. All right, so we follow. This is very basic, obviously. We're not doing any perfect cinematography here. Well, that one we need to fix. And that is most likely because of this. Let's change this back into a 1. Still going too fast. So when we transition from here to there, see, this is where you want to, you can just go into your graph editor and fix it. But again, I'm not going to go too into detail on that right now. You can just quickly add another one here and say, okay, I mean, I'm just trying to show you the easiest way of doing it without having to explain the graph editor. So you click on that and then you say, for example, yeah, I still want you to be in frame, and add a keyframe there as well, right? And then it stays more or less in frame. Nah, this one I think it wasn't positioned right. Let's do that again. Say right there, add the keyframe. Let's see. Nope, for some reason it did not keyframe it here. Let's put it at linear. If we were to say, we put all these at linear, because then we're not letting any get in between. So here, nope. We need to select the keyframe, this one right here, move the camera, and then keyframe it. All right, so let's see. Yeah, that's a bit better. It's far from perfect, and now at this point it makes maybe more sense to make them smooth. This part I don't like too much, and that's literally because of that. Because of these two, they might be a bit better like this. So to keep a constant there, and then, yeah. So walk, 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 and then you keep a constant, and then you run. And there you go. So that is how to do the absolute basics in animation. Okay, so we click on this, we press, we look. There is a walk cycle. Walk cycle will transition into running cycle. We follow the character, and then he jumps. Again, it is extremely basic what I just showed you. Let's eject out of the camera, go into perspective. Let's see. Am I in my perspective now? I'm going to get out of this. Yeah, there we go. We're into our perspective. Again, don't worry about cameras. We will cover cameras at a later point in time, in the next video most likely. But it's just so that you see here. Let me collapse the camera now. Collapse this. So the animation, right, idle animation, he walks around, goes there, and like this, even though you've seen very, very basic stuff, this is really the essentials of animation. If you understand this part that I've just shown you here, you can animate a lot of things already. Okay, so in this video also we're not going to talk about how to add items to characters through sockets. So there's this one thing called sockets where you can, for example, give this guy a sword on his back, or like give him a backpack or clothing or all that stuff, where you can add animations, or let's say it's as if you were to add an additional bone to the rig. We're going to see that also in the next video, maybe a little bit more where we cover advanced topics on animation. But before I do leave, let's quickly see how we can import our own animations, right? Let's do that. Let's quickly bring this up to here. I've got this animation in Blender, so I'm going to open up Blender really quickly. I'm going to show you the animation right here. All right, let's see, Blender, there we go. Let's open our last one. There we go. So this is an animation from a character that I've got myself. Very simple, okay? It's just like I decided to take a very, very simple thing. So if I press spacebar, they all work the same way basically, right? So you can see it's a typical animation in Blender. Okay, something quite simple, and it repeats, right? So let's press pause. Let's go back. Right, it doesn't matter what the animation is. Okay, so when I click on it, you've got your dope sheet right here, and you've got all the information, all your keyframes. It's a very, very simple animation. Now, with this done, all you have to do, if you are in Blender, for example, you can just select this. So select the character. In this case, you've noticed that there is a gun. Ideally, you don't export the gun because then you can add the gun afterwards. But just to make things very fast, let's assume that you just needed the gun in this particular animation because you're not going to see the character without the gun ever again. Now, if in the animation that you're making, you're going to see the character with and without the gun, then export the gun separately. But in this case, I'm just going to export it as one and the same within the rig. You'll see what I mean in a second. So I select the character, I go to File, I go to Export, I go to FBX, and here I do, so limit to selected objects, very important, right? And that's basically it. I'll just quickly to the desktop, I'll just put it on the desktop, and I will export it right here, apply unit, yeah, that's all fine. Just the most important thing is that you do selected objects, because obviously I have other items in my outliner. Export FBX, so that's done. I'm gonna remove this. And right here, it's right here. So the FBX file is right here. So we're going to go to Content Browser, right? And let's say I go to My Assets. I have a bike here. I'm going to create another folder, new folder, My Animations, for example, right? Double click, and I'm going to take the FBX. I'm going to import it, drag and drop. And now here there are a few things that you really want to tick. You want to tick skeletal mesh because my character has a mesh. You want to, there is no skeleton that you can apply here. Okay, this is for a different item. This is for the mannequin. So these you don't want to do. So you just keep it at none. And you do want to import animations, very important. Okay, you have to click this one. Convert scene unit, important to keep it in the same units. to make sure that it comes into Unreal the right way, and then you just press import all, right? So we import all, and that's the character right here, right? So we've got a skeletal mesh, we've got the animation sequence, we've got the skeleton, and all that stuff, right? So let's see. Let's quickly maybe try to, so maybe we can make it interact with the character. Right, let's go back to sequencer. Where's the sequence? Right here, somewhere here. Okay, let's try to import this character somehow. Right, let's bring her in. You can bring it in just as a skeletal mesh, for example. If you bring it in as a skeletal mesh, what you'll see is that, so the gun is there because I said the gun makes, I mean, it's part of the item in this case, of this animation. Because we're only going to do this animation with her, then it doesn't matter. But if you were to do animations without the gun, again, you have to import without the gun then, right? So that later on you can add it, and then you use a socket within Unreal Engine. We'll see that in another video. But let's go quickly to her. I'm just quickly going to slap a material on her so she's a little bit more, I mean, it's a little bit easier to see. Let's do a default. Default will do. There you go. So we just wait for her to, yep, there you go. And we're gonna bring her into the sequencer, somewhere here, right? So the animated gun girl, drag and drop. Let's drag and drop her here. So we got her right here. You can also move them around, by the way. So if you want this one to be below that or all that stuff, you can move around. We're just gonna keep her here for now. Or the camera actor, I mean, if you want your cameras above. So here we go. We got her right here, right? We do, when we open her up, we do want to add an animation because we do have an animation for her. It's this gun pose that she has, right? You can see here the frames. And what she does is basically she looks around and swings her gun to the side, right? Now, we only have that once because after that, she just goes back to that. So what we're going to do is maybe, as he turns around, and what we can do, by the way, for her, because she's facing the wrong way, we can rotate her. Put her at 90 degrees, for example. And maybe by the time he shows up, let's see, let's move her around here a bit. Can we put her somewhere here, maybe? Up. Let's see if there's a way that he can, she looks around and then tracks her. Yeah, just something like that. Okay, so something like that. Something like that. But that's how you do it, basically. You can, and obviously I only brought in one animation here. If I had more, then, you know, you just chain one after the other in the same way you do with this. But this is how you bring in your own animations, right? This character is not, there's no UV mapping, there's no textures or nothing. This is just a very simple character that I've created in order to do previs on Blender files, right? And if I have to do some very basic animations like you see here, they're very simple, then you just do that. Just like that. So not like any professional animations, but just some basic movements. And that's it. This is how you can bring in your own characters, your own animations, and you can just link them up. So once you bring in, if you were to bring in more animations of her, you could very simple just bring in only the skeleton rig, so you won't have to import the mesh again and all that stuff. So when you do import, so you had the option to import the mesh, just deactivate the mesh, only import the rig, and then you've got the animation and so forth. And then you do that for 20, 30, or 40 different types of animations, or you can do a very long sequence if you have a complete sequence that you've built up. There are many, many different things that you can do. And with animating, you can, if you know your level here, for example, you can have a block out in Blender or in Maya in case there are objects in the way, or she has to like rotate around for example, around a wall or something, like what she did here. This kind of looks like she could have been around the wall. If I were to do that again, say for example, if I were to 90 degrees and put it here, for example, something like that. Yeah, this could have served as, for example, an animation where she looks around, or well, her leg is going into the wall, so she needs a little bit more space here. But where she looks around, right? She looks around on that side and then gets distracted and looks to this side, for example, right? Because there was a noise there or something, for example, right? So she's about to turn and then she hears something and goes over to there, right? So these type of things you can quickly do and import and all that stuff. So there you go. That's the very, very, very basics of animation and getting things into sequencer. Again, we didn't create any like stunning animations or anything whatsoever. All we did was just play around a little bit. If I were to go back to the camera here, and so when you want to see your camera, you can just click on this icon and then press play. Escape, and then here on the timeline. So we're now in the timeline. You can press the spacebar to play, and most likely we'll see the animation in the background as well. There you go. She'll move her thingy, and that's it. As simple as that was. And that's just because we have no idle animation for her. We just have this one where she turns around and then, all right. There you go. Okay, well that's it. That's my 2 cents on the basics of animation. In the next video, we'll most likely look at importing more animations from Mixamo, which is very cool, and maybe look at a few more complicated things with animation, adding some items to our characters, like using the sockets and stuff like that. And then after that, most likely we'll also cover some more on cameras. Okay, well there you go. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I guess I'll see you guys in the next one.